The only thing I did not like about that movie
Seamless.
was the designs.
Seamless. Look at this.
Look at that.
And now, when I look up at the TV, it's sort of I'm looking in your direction
I know,
too. So I mean,
know. Look at that. Who knew?
amazing.
We just needed to test that whole thing. And look, I can look at Hassan now. This is probably the worst podcast we've ever done already. Like I think it's.
I think it's great. I would listen to it.
I think it's already lined up as not being one of our best. But
I don't think so. I think you underestimate us as usual. As usual.
I like that.
It's all right to underestimate us. When you overestimate us, that's when we get into trouble.
I will say it's the best caption we've ever done though. Wakanda forever.
Because this is a question mark. That's
all,
okay.
all I saw was a dog do this.
Then I achieved everything I was hoping to do. I mean, let's be honest. That's exactly what I was trying to do.
Michael,
Yes,
did you see Black Panther 2?
of course I did.
Did you actually watch, or did you just watch the trailer a bunch of times?
I think we actually saw it at the same time because we were messaging each other around the same time.
Yeah.
So I think it actually worked out.
the only
But
reason I
you weren't messing each other during the movie, though.
No, but the only reason
Okay,
I
good.
didn't message you about it at all
Yeah.
was because then we tend to delve into talking
Yeah, I don't
about
like.
it.
I don't like delving.
Yeah.
You got to
And
keep
I
the
didn't-
delving.
I didn't.
I don't
yeah,
like
I
delving.
don't want to
I'm not a
delve.
delve fan.
I don't like to delve either.
No,
But
he
I mean,
loves to delve. Because
well,
then he says-
No, I'm saying you got to
No.
keep the delving for this, though.
yes.
I don't.
Exactly.
I don't like to be stopped mid delve. That's what I meant.
Right. The other thing is, too, is like, and this is something that Hassan and I have found when being on a podcast together, that a lot of times you'll go in with an idea or a thought and you'll start explaining, you'll start going in, you'll start hearing other people's opinions or more discussions on it, and things will change.
That's right.
Your view of what you've just experienced will change. So
That's happened a few
it's
times.
good to stay cold and come in, just speak your piece, and then go, oh, yeah, oh, like, listen.
Right. The process of it changing.
Yes.
Is actually the whole podcast. Like that's the point of the podcast. And many times when Hassan changes his point of view because of the wonderful words of wisdom I spew, I mean that's what it's all about. Like that's what makes this show.
I will say that's kind of what I live for. Those rare moments
It
when
happens
that
more than you
happens.
think.
Just before we move on, is that a signed 8x10 of Dudley Moore?
No, that is my cousin Chip. Not Chip. My cousin from
just
the
looks like
from
Dudley
Eric
Moore.
Estrada. It's my cousin Eric Estrada. Eric Estrada is my cousin.
Okay.
I
That
met
is-
him once when I was like
He might
5
be
years
a, he
old.
might
That
be
is
a,
not
he might
true.
be a guest.
No, it's
at,
absolutely
Eric
through
Estrada.
marriage. Yeah, through marriage.
he might be a guest at
his
Planet Comic Con
mom-
this year, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He won't remember me, but well, he'll remember his mom, I would think.
One would hope.
And I'd be like, your mom married my great uncle.
Oh, for God's sakes, that's
Yeah.
too much. All right, okay.
I
From
am
here,
your
it looks like
brother's
Dudley Moore. So.
father's cousin's former roommate.
Okay, we can move on.
So, all right,
But you did see the movie.
here's the thing about the movie, right? You guys
okay.
came in, and you were saying we're going to, I mean, you were joking, maybe half joking, I don't know, about roasting the movie. I always love to give you my dad's opinion of the movie, because it's actually, I feel like a very good, it's an outsider. He has
Yeah.
no concept of like
It's
the
a
Marvel
good.
universe.
It's a good grounding.
He's
Right.
never
Test.
seen any of the Marvel Universe stuff?
No, he sees it with me, but he's not like a Marvel universe guy to where
He doesn't know
Okay.
the comic books in the
he
context.
doesn't know
of a lot
anything
of
about the
stuff.
comic books. He's just coming in to see a movie.
Okay.
And this is it. His initial reaction was weird movie.
Had he seen the
Very
original? Had he seen the
strange
first
movie.
one?
Yes. We
Okay.
saw it together. Yes. And he just said strange movie. That's what he said. And I said, you know what? And this is my overall take on the movie, which is actually an overall take on the director. He builds worlds very well. I went into this movie and I enjoyed seeing the world of Namor. I also felt, much like I did in the first movie, the way it was shot, this is not a Marvel Universe movie. I know it is. I know it's connected. I know it's part of the MCU. But the way it's shot is shot unlike any other Marvel franchise. If you told me this was the Marvel Universe, I wouldn't believe you because it's sort of the Marvel Universe. But we didn't have... It was the first movie that didn't feel like it was just a segue for the next Marvel movie.
That's true.
I know that there's...
No.
I know that there is a mid-credit scene that is basically setting up the next,
Right.
iteration of Black Panther down the line.
Yes.
Great. I know that there is a character, Ironheart, in the film that is going to get her own Disney Plus show.
Sure.
However, right. However, other than that, this was almost like Avatar meets Aquaman.
Wakanda Avatar.
Right.
What?
Right. It kind of was meets
Yes.
the world of Black Panther, and I was like, you know what? I'm down.
Yeah, we're gonna be underwater a lot this year. At the end of this year,
right? There's a gravity. There's a gravity to this, to the way he shoots things that makes this feel larger than life. It feels like a blockbuster. It feels like an old time blockbuster. And I'm not talking about story, and I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm just talking about I go in there and I'm like, wow, this feels like I'm watching a movie. I'm not watching the latest installment in the MCU franchise. And for that, I walked away feeling good. They were put in an impossible situation, and had to make the best of it. Was it the greatest film I ever saw? No. Was it the best Marvel film? No. But given the circumstances and again the way it was shot, I walked out feeling like I was like, you know what? I'm not going to think too deep into this one. I just walked away and felt good about it, and that was my initial impression walking away.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. I think it had a heavy lift to do. I think for the heavy lifting it had to do, it did a really good job of lifting under the circumstances. It's ironic. I don't know. I won't know how I feel about this movie until the third movie, whatever the third movie comes out. Because if this is a transitional movie, like it feels, then it'll be really strong. And I'll think it's a really strong transitional movie.
Yeah.
If this is just like the direction, or they don't make any more movies,
sure,
I will think that this is a decent sequel.
Okay.
But it also is a franchise-killing sequel.
Yes.
So, I think, unfortunately, it's kind of like The Empire Strikes Back. It's like it does require a third one in order for me to know exactly how good this one is. I think for what they tried to do, and I think they, I know that they wanted to honor Chadwick Boseman by not recasting, but I think also by naming his son T'Challa, spoiler, and and basically by the time the next movie comes around, he'll be of age where he'll wear the Black Panther mantle.
I don't know about that. He's pretty young.
Yeah, but they'll
that's a quasi young though, right?
Yeah, because we're in a nebulous time with the MCU because it's 5 years in the future now. It's anytime. It's anytime they want to make it.
When did Endgame come out?
2019.
Okay, so 2019 is what, 3 years ago?
Yeah, but 2019
moved ahead
but 5 years. 5 years
2019
plus one.
So they're technically in 2024 now.
They're actually 6 years ahead because they said 5 years plus a year because it had been a year since.
Sure.
Yeah, but they can just say because we're not getting an MCU.
Not linear time.
I understand that, but they also have to keep some semblance of coherence across the MCU, and they've managed to keep it roughly in our current time frame, give or take. And they're not just going to start suddenly. I don't think Feige's going to suddenly start advancing time frames in order to age a character to be old enough to take over.
I agree with you respectfully, but I do believe that he's going to be the focus of the next movie. God, who knows how long it'll take to get that next movie out, but I don't think they're going to keep it as Shuri. Especially for two reasons. A, because it's a traditionally male character, even though Shuri was Black Panther for a little while in the comic books. And B, there's a little bit of a decent backlash to this because it's an all female led movie, and I don't have a problem with it at all. However,
never once even factored into my thoughts.
It's definitely factored into mine, without a doubt. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was just a noticeable way.
I can honestly say, going through this movie, I never even once thought about the fact that Namor was the only main male character in this film.
I think it's a well balanced movie, and I think all the characters were wonderful. And I think it strikes the right tone of what you do when you have a tragic loss, and you still have a tremendous load of things that you have to do. You have a lot of maintenance. You have to take care of a kingdom. You have to keep going. I think it strikes that chord very well. I'm just saying, for the sake of getting Black Panther to what it was at the time of the first one, getting it back to the franchise height that it was at the first one. I don't know if Shuri is the person that's going to carry that for the next movie. And I think if she shares the mantle with her nephew now, I think there's a better chance of getting us back to the majesty of that first movie, as opposed to, and then this movie will be a very powerful transition movie. But I think if they just keep it going like this, I don't see how much more story they can tell with it, because she's already had her struggle with coming into her own, and
Right.
you know, and I mean, M'Baku, I don't know how that ended. I don't know if M'Baku is now the king of Wakanda. They kind of left that open.
Very ambiguous.
Yeah, so I don't know what the role is. I don't know what's going on with that, but
So, a couple things. I'm glad you pointed out the female-led, because, and again, I'm not saying good or bad, but it was noticeable to me. Like, it was noticeable when on screen you have the three major characters in the film. Is Danny Guerrero's character. You have Shuri, and then you have Riri, and they for the most part play like the biggest role.
yeah.
Well, a big chunk of the
except
second
for-
act.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's
Except
a
for
departure
Agent-
because this is Black Panther is originally a male character, and there were more male characters. Namor, like you said, was the only male character. It was noticeable. Look, it's a noticeable aspect to me, anyway. But
I think the movie is fantastic for the sake of they understood we got to pack this. We have to have all of our star power work in tandem to make up for the loss, the very noticeable loss of Chadwick Boseman.
correct.
Because I think he carried the last movie, and he carried his weight
Yeah.
of Infinity War.
Right.
And then, of course, that's why he was like the first person to come through the portal at the end of Endgame, because of because they discovered that he was
because his movie
charismatic.
made $1 billion.
Yeah, that's
why.
what I'm saying. They've discovered his character was charismatic enough that attracts a lot of attention. Now he's lost, so they didn't. I think the mistake would have been if they recast it, and they would hope that the new person,
Right.
they would bank on the new person being as charismatic as Chadwick Boseman was, and then it wouldn't work. There's a very big chance if they just moved on,
Right.
it wouldn't have worked. But like if they go through this, which is what they did, and they take the chance and they lean into it, and they make this a decent transition movie, which like it seems like it is, but
Yeah.
like I said, I won't know until I see the third one. I think they will have overcome that problem, and technically they did recast T'Challa because they named the new his son T'Challa, so technically is a recast.
Right.
So if he comes of age and joins the MCU,
Right.
it will still be T'Challa's Black Panther, and you could say that the Black Panther from the comic books is his son as opposed to
Right.
the original T'Challa, and you can make it work.
Yeah.
I think it can work. It's just I cannot make up my mind until I see
What
it.
they've done is set up Phase 8.
Yeah,
It's essentially what.
which is basically what Marvel does.
And yes, but again, it was at the end of the film, and it was a surprise. Spoilers. And surprise.
Yeah, I already blew that for everyone listening.
But-
Unfortunately,
So it again, it didn't feel as if it was the main point of the film was to do this. Because it was really kind of an afterthought to this whole thing. It was really the film was Shuri coming to terms with her brother's loss. Steve, what were your
Yeah, we don't
overall
have-
thoughts?
we don't have Steve's thoughts.
We haven't dived into what you
Yeah.
came
So
away with it.
so when I walked out of the movie, I felt profoundly different about it than I do today. I'll be honest.
when I
because
walked
a
out,
little-
I punched the first person that
when
suggested I see this movie.
I spoke to Hassan briefly over text about this, just saying I had very specific thoughts, and I have discovered that over the last 2 days that I have made some significant discoveries about modern film in general.
Wakanda's not a real place. You know that.
Yes, and so
Make sure.
so my thoughts have actually somewhat pivoted on this a little, because one of the things that drove me crazy about the movie, I don't really feel is a fair thing to knock it for. And I understand, again, to Hassan's point, the path that it had to take. Listen, at the end of the day, if the Easter egg is ever put out there somewhere, I would love to read Coogler's draft of this script that he had ready when Chadwick
Before.
passed away, because I would love to see what that movie looked like.
Yes, and there is a script out there.
Well,
that is
right.
You know,
So, that being said, I think this movie is really, again, like I've said before, most Marvel films, they're very well produced, they're well put together. You can't knock them for not being part of the overall and the success of being part of the overall Marvel picture.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this film is very successful at what I feel it was trying to do. They did have an incredibly difficult path to take after Chadwick's passing. I really liked what they did with Namor. I really liked how their choice to base his heritage and tie it in with spoilers, with
like the Mayan religion,
the destruction of the Mayan religion and people, was a really smart move. However, I think that this time around, Coogler, instead of, because he already has established what we see as Wakanda and the Black experience, he is now doing with Namor and the Hispanic experience, and now world building for that race.
Yeah.
So I think that he's now carrying double duty in the movie. Now, I liked a lot of the things they did with Namor, because historically, if you go back with Namor, especially in the 70s and 80s, Namor hated the surface world. And his attitude was very much in alignment with how he behaves in this movie. So I actually liked that they made him not necessarily the bad guy, but
no, they made him Namor.
They made him very Namor, and
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
There are parts of this movie that very much felt like Wakanda Avatar, as we joked earlier.
Yes.
This movie is 2 hours and 41 minutes long. Now, given 8 to 10 of that is credits, but I feel very much like Marvel was never going to come back at Ryan Coogler about the cut.
How long it is.
And I really feel like when you see this movie feels like a director's cut. This feels like he put in everything he wanted to put in.
You're thinking kitchen sink? It's a kitchen sink kind of situation.
I think there's stuff in this movie that didn't need to be here. I think there's stuff
Like
that
what? I'm actually curious about this, because I actually didn't notice the length when I was there, and I agree with you. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it flew
most
pretty fast.
times when I'm in a movie watching it the first time, I don't notice the length of time either. If I do during the movie, that's a really bad situation.
But that's what you're saying, right?
But I feel like when I watched it, this movie could have been slimmer. It could have been.
I will agree. There are moments, like, I don't think it was, for me specifically, I don't think it was too long, but there are definitely moments in the movie where I'm like, if it ended now, it would be perfect, or if this
Right.
wasn't there, it would be perfect.
Yeah, it's not suffering from Point Break syndrome, where it's like a movie ends and then ends again and then ends again and then ends again. It's not that syndrome. I think that it feels to me like there's stuff in here, and I understand that there's stuff in it that has to be in there to propel the overarching phase story forward. Yeah. All the stuff with Martin Freeman and
Marvel movies always have so
Valerie,
much work to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Valerie, what's her name? So, they've while this story is not necessarily completely tied in with everything that's happening in the MCU, maybe right now, this second, it has to be peripherally connected, because it has to be able to tie it back into the timeline.
Sure.
So, and I think, again, how that situation sort of resolves itself is obviously something that's going to bring us into, obviously, not only future films, but future Marvel TV stuff that's happening at Disney Plus. I'm at this point, since they've already announced Secret Invasion as a TV series, I basically take anything that happens now or has happened in the MCU is essentially changeable back to an original state. Like any character that's died, any character that has been removed from the queue, whatever, none of it's going to matter, because once you bring a secret invasion into the situation, you can find out, you can bring back every single one of those characters by just saying, oh, well, she was actually a Skrull.
Yeah, multiverse. Yeah, or because of that, in the although they do,
and not even from the multiverse standpoint,
right? But I mean, also you can do that with the Skrull or multiverse. You can you could say
I
that.
love
although
how...
supposedly Ant-Man's going to end the multiverse.
Yeah.
So
well,
who knows?
Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave podcast.